Hello, Year 2, and welcome to part 2 of our lesson. For the next couple days, we are going to be looking at turning speech bubbles into speech marks. Now, we did this for, I think, maybe 1 week when we were in school, so we've probably forgotten how to use speech marks in our writing, so we're going to start that today. Now, a lot of books use the word said, but said is a little bit boring, especially if we say it over and over and over again. So we don't like to use the word said. Today, we're going to be looking at words that we can use instead of said, because said is dead. No more said. What I want you to do now is to make a sheet that looks like this. So you're going to get a piece of paper and you're going to split it in half. And then on one side of the page, I want you to have like a good side of the page, and on the other side, I want you to have a not good side. So you don't have to use faces, you can just write things like happy words and sad words, or maybe a tick and then a cross, just something so that you know, sorry, so that you know that this is the good side and this is like the unhappy or the angry side. When you have finished making your sheet, press play again, and then we'll start the next part of the lesson. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say some words that mean the same thing as said, and you have to decide which column it goes into. So, first word, cried. Now, in storybooks, the word cried doesn't necessarily mean to cry. It sometimes means to say something loudly or to say something in a really happy way, but it can also mean to shout. So I want you to decide which column is it going to go into, the good column or the bad column, or maybe it can go into both. Okay, so I want you to write the word cried into the right column. Next word, grumbled. If someone grumbles, they normally like go, oh, I don't really want to do that. So is that going to be a good word, sorry, or a bad word? I'm going to write that into the correct column now. Next word, sighed, like, ah, this is really nice. Or it can also be, oh, I don't want to do that. Is it a good word, a bad word, or both? Stuttered. This is like someone going, but I don't want to do that. Good word, bad word, or both? Demanded. This is like Miss Trunchbull marching down the corridors saying, be quiet, sit down. Happy word, angry word, or both? Joked. That will be like Matilda saying, oh, Daddy, you're so clever. Happy word, sad or angry word, or both? Squealed. That will be like Mrs. Wormwood going, oh my God, what have you done to your hair, Harry? Happy word, angry word, or sad word? This can also be excited word, sorry, or both. Exclaimed. That could be Matilda saying, oh my goodness, I love reading. Good, bad, or both? Grinned. That means the same as smiled. That's definitely, that for sure, it's a happy word. Laughed. Good, bad, or both? Replied. That means to answer. Good, bad, or both? Shouted. Good, bad, or both? Whispered. What do you think? Good, bad, or both? And finally, the last word is groaned. I don't want to go to school. Good, bad, or both? Okay, so once you have finished doing this activity, you have a challenge. What I want you to do is to look through some of your books at home and see if you can find any words that mean the same thing as said. And then I want you to write them down on your sheet so that we are ready to go for the next part of the lesson.
Okay, year two, next part of the lesson. This is where it's going to get really tricky, okay? So I hope you have your brains turned on. In this scene, we've got Hortensia, Lavender, and Matilda. Now, in this scene, Hortensia says, "The chokey is a very tall but very narrow cupboard." We want to turn this thing that Hortensia has said in a speech bubble into a sentence with speech marks. And instead of using the word said, we are going to use the word whispered. So Hortensia is going to say, "The chokey is a very tall but very narrow cupboard," whispered Hortensia. So this is what Hortensia has said to Lavender and Matilda. She has whispered, "The chokey is a very tall but very narrow cupboard." When we put things in speech marks, the bit that goes in between the speech marks is everything that is inside the speech bubble. We are going to start by just copying what is inside the speech bubble first. And I'm going to use different colors so you can see the different parts of the sentence. So I'm going to copy just what's inside the speech bubble. Now, when we do speech in speech marks, a full stop becomes a comma. I'm going to put that in green. So I've replaced that. Now we're going to put the speech marks in. So what exactly did Hortensia say? This is what she said. So I'm going to put an opening speech mark at the beginning. Then I'm going to put a closing speech mark at the end, because that's the bit that Hortensia said. Now I'm going to use another color for the other word for said, for whispered. Whispered. Hortensia. Whispered Hortensia. And then there's a full stop at the end. And I want to make sure actually that we're remembering our capital letter at the very beginning of the speech. So I'm going to put that in red as well. Okay. So that is how we turn speech bubbles into a sentence with speech marks. So now that I've shown you how to turn that into speech using speech marks, I want you to try to turn this sentence that Matilda has said into a sentence using speech marks. We are going to say that Matilda has asked this. "Can you lean against the door?" asked Matilda. So I want you to have a go now. And when you have finished, press play again so you can see the answer. So this is what Hortensia has said. And then this is what your sentence should look like for Matilda. So next one. In this scene, Miss Trunchbull is shouting at Amanda Thripp and saying how much she really, really hates her pigtails. So in a speech bubble, Miss Trunchbull has said, "I want those filthy pigtails off before you come back to school tomorrow." And we are going to say that Miss Trunchbull has shouted. So I'm going to show you how to turn this into a sentence using speech marks. So this is what Miss Trunchbull is shouting to Amanda Thripp. "I want those filthy pigtails off before you come back to school tomorrow," shouted Miss Trunchbull. So we're going to turn this speech bubble into a sentence with speech marks. First thing we're going to do is copy what is inside the speech bubble. So I I want those filthy pigtails off before you come back to school tomorrow. And we're going to keep the exclamation marks. When we do speech in speech marks, we can have an exclamation mark, just not a full stop. Next thing is we need to put our speech marks around what Miss Trunchbull has shouted. Keep that capital letter there. Opening speech mark at the beginning, then closing speech mark at the end, then shouted, and who has shouted it? Miss Trunchbull has shouted it. Shouted, Miss Trunchbull. And at the end, what do we need? A full stop. Now that you have seen me do it, I want you to turn what Amanda Thripp has said into a sentence using speech marks. My mummy thinks I look lovely, Miss Trunchbull. And we are going to say that Amanda Thripp has stuttered. So have a go now. And when you have finished, you can press play to see what the answer should be. So this is what Miss Trunchbull has said. And this is the sentence using what Amanda Thripp has said. So double check to see that you've got the punctuation in the right place. Next one. This is where Miss Trunchbull and the dinner lady are watching Bruce Bogtrotter eat that massive chocolate cake. In this scene, Miss Trunchbull has said, "Have another slice." And we are going to say that she has demanded it. So I'm going to show you how to turn this into a sentence using speech marks. In this speech bubble, or in this scene, Miss Trunchbull is demanding Bruce Bogtrotter to have another slice of chocolate cake. So Miss Trunchbull has said, "Have another slice." We're going to copy what Miss Trunchbull has said. I'm going to remember my red capital letter first. Have another slice. And remember, if there's a full stop in the speech bubble, we have to change it to a comma. Okay. Now we're going to put the speech marks around what Miss Trunchbull has said. She has said, "Have another slice." Demanded. Oops. Demanded. Who has demanded it? Miss Trunchbull. And what do we need at the end? A full stop. So now that you've seen my example, I want you to try to turn what Bruce Bogtrotter has said into a sentence using speech marks. And we are going to say that he has replied. "That's enough, thank you," replied Bruce Bogtrotter. So have a go. And when you're done, you can press play again and you can see if you've done it correctly. So that's what Miss Trunchbull has said. And this is what Bruce Bogtrotter has said. So double check that you've done it correctly. Once you have done that, then you're done for today. Well done, guys.